The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Fady, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. The other day I had this exclusive interview with Arun Venkataraman. He was in Georgia. He represents US Department of State. He's the chief of foreign trade. And he said this phrase that if Georgia has a free and independent court system and justice system, you will see American businesses coming to Georgia. Is it true? Is there this kind of direct link with free and fair?
The judiciary in a country is one of the main factors in which foreign investors look whenever they want to invest in a country. There are other factors like internal political stability, outside political stability, regional political stability, corruption, but rule of law is one of the major issues that foreign investors look at. So, of course, if Georgia has a functional judiciary, an independent judiciary, this will boost foreign investment in the country. But the question is not only whether we have a good judiciary or not, the question is whether the government wants foreign investors or not. What we have seen over the past 10 years is that the government don't want foreign investors here. The only foreign investors who are welcome here are the ones who do business with people related to the government. Besides that, independent foreign investors had a lot of problems and trouble here that were triggered by the government on purpose. Look at the hydropowers, for example. Look what happened with Philip Morris and BAT a few years back. And I can tell you stories every day about foreign investors having very big problems because the government is not foreign investor friendly, except when they talk. But when it comes to working on the ground, the government they don't want foreign investors.
What are the main problems that foreign investors face in Georgia?
Now the main problem, there are two main problems. One of them is chauvinism. This means that the Georgian government doesn't like foreigners to do business here, but this reflects the opinion of a considerable part of the society also. So the government is trying to pat those people so they keep voting for them. So this is one. The other one is corruption. I mean, corruption has become intolerable in the country. If you take dealing with the municipality, I mean, there is a menu with the prices. It's not printed, but everyone knows because, you know, people talk to me. For example, if you want to remove a tree, there is a, let's say, 3,000 lari per tree. If you want to add one floor, you have to pay $20,000, $30,000 in cash. If you want to get the GRG that you want, it's $200,000 in cash. So there is a menu with the prices unannounced. Then, for example, there is one investor, foreign investor, who has a huge plot of land. I will not, it's in Tbilisi, I will not give the name because maybe he doesn't want me to give his name. But he sold several plots of this land to Georgians, some of them Georgian parliamentarians from the Georgian Dream. They built buildings in the land. He went himself and asked for a GRG like their GRG in the land that belongs to him. They refused to give him, okay? There is another foreign, Georgian and foreign investor together. They have a business center a business center in Tbilisi, I will not say where. They got all the permits, everything, they built the business center, and since 3 years, the municipality is refusing to give them access to their parking, underground parking. So since 3 years, the building is finished, no one is renting, no one is buying, because there is no access. Okay. And they're doing it on purpose, because they want to buy the property at a discounted price, and the day they buy the property at discounted price, people related to the government, next day there is access to the parking. Same thing happened, if you remember, with this Israeli company that sold the mall to Kvanchilashvili on Rustavelli, okay, this Galleria, before it became Galleria. They were not giving them access to the parking. They sold with at $20 million less than the cost. Next day, there was access to the parking. So those are serious problems, okay? And no one wants to touch Georgia anymore. I mean, you know, our office is like the weeping wall of Jerusalem. Every day we have somebody coming crying, this happened to us, this happened to us.
Is this corruption, Fady, or is this bad bureaucracy?
No, it's corruption. The problem are done on purpose. Then you have many businesses that are close to the government, that can do any business that they want, any project, especially with the municipality. You have few developers who are very close to the mayor. And those guys, if they want to build a skyscraper in Abano Tubani, they can get the license and build a skyscraper over there, you see? So that's the problem. That's why no one serious wants to touch Georgia. Yes, you have people who come buy a piece of land or an apartment, but you know, this does not create a momentum. And if you look at the FDI figures, you will see that 65% of the FDI is reinvestment. What's reinvestment? It's not reinvestment. It's the profits that were not disbursed by those foreign companies between brackets. Those are the profits that remain. Like you take Makti, okay, is one of the largest foreign investors. It doesn't mean that they invested $100 million in 20 or 50 million. No, it means that they generated profit that is in their bank account. It has not been distributed to the equity shareholders. This means it's safe. Then you have loans from international banks. It's a loan. It counts as foreign investment, like 10, 12%. And then last year we had like 30% equity investment, which is like people who came and bought something, okay? This is what counts. So that's the picture. I mean, and we had $2 billion of FDI, out of which $400 million are in real estate. In 2021, it was $40 million in the real estate. So we increased $360 million. Why? Because you have all those Russians who came here and who bought apartments and things like this.
Could rule of law change this picture with investors?
Of course, rule of law is the basis. Without rule of law, a country cannot function.
Can we say that court reform is the main reform out of those 12 preconditions that we have for getting this EU candidate country status, where the government needs to show its political will that it is ready to reform the system?
Yes, definitely. Reform of the court is maybe, I cannot put which one is more important because the 12 points are very important. But it is definitely one of the most important points in order to put the country back on track and to create stability in the country. Because, you know, the courts are being used by the government to serve their own agenda. And that's why the government doesn't want to do any reform and reform the courts, because if they reform the courts, they would be cutting the branch on which they are sitting, because they sit thanks to the courts. And it is like They defend the court defend them, and it's a win-win between the government and the judiciary. We protect you, you protect us, we stay in power forever. However, having said that, we have seen it historically from the Shevardnadze's time till now. The judges, they have no loyalty. The judges, you see those judges that have been appointed now by the Georgian Dream, all of them, who are like, going every day in front of Kvanchilashvili and kissing his hand. Those are the same judges who will put Kvanchilashvili in jail and all the government in case the government change. They have zero loyalty. They will be loyal to the next government that will come in power. So, and that's a real problem because there is no independence and they are all involved, many judges are involved themselves in corruption. This means that they have assets that they cannot justify, okay? And those assets, they got them in a questionable way. This means that any government that will come can put any judge in jail. And that's why they get the loyalty before even they get in power, because those judges are scared.
The government says that give proof, and they are telling the U.S. State Department, Antony Blinken, that sanctioning these judges won't count unless you present the proof.
Look, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. The proof is in the awards, in the decisions of the judges. This is the proof. When you read a decision and you see the case and you see that the decision is totally irrelevant to the case, it's a crooked decision. Like the case of Philip Morris and BAT, if you remember, when this Judge Vladimir Kakabadze decided to make them pay $140 million jointly based on a law that does not exist in Georgia. Because we didn't have a law for that here in Georgia.
What will this sanctioning of these judges change? Because now what we see from the government's rhetoric, from the court's rhetoric, is that this decision might worsen the situation with polarization, and this might work against the EU candidate country status.
This means Georgia now is one of the countries that is sanctioned. So already this is very bad, okay? This is one. Second, the sanctions by themselves are not very strong sanctions. This means like prohibiting someone from traveling to the United States is not a big sanction. But it's a very symbolic move because this is the first time that the United States takes a punitive measure against Georgia. And the relationship between the United States and Georgia since 30 years is very close. I mean, they are like our closest ally and they supported Georgia all over those years. And this means that this is a message, much more than a sanction. It's a message that we did this. If you don't correct your course, there will be serious things happening, serious sanctions happening, okay? So it is in this context that the Georgian governments need to read it. It's not in the context, what did the judge do, show us on what, that's irrelevant. It's in the context that, what is the next step now, okay? Are we going to continue within this line and we're going to get slapped with serious sanctions? Or are we going to change our course and work on those 12 points and start building the country properly and stop corruption and fix the judiciary and all those things?
Is there enough time till October?
Look, I don't think that, it's David Copperfield who's going to come and make the 12 points. It takes a very long time to, it's not a decision that the parliament takes that we're going to reshuffle the judiciary. There should be results. So, honestly,
so you do not believe that, showing the political will and considering that Georgian people have defended many times this Euro-Atlantic course of the country, so this showing political will can help to for Georgia to grant candidate status and then, for example, say that, here is the status and now you have to work further on reform.
No,
so that's not
I don't
your
think it will
expectation.
happen like this. In my opinion, the government is responsible for the country, not the people. And giving the status of member at a time the government has totally diverged from the European path and the Western path is giving a brownie to the government, okay? Giving them credit that they don't deserve. And it will encourage them, and then you know what will happen? Then those 12 points will not be done in 2024, because if they are done in 2024, there is no way that the Georgian Dream will remain in power. There is no way, because they have to go through this proportional elections, 100%. So this means that the Georgian Dream will lose their majority, okay? And if they lose their majority, this entails a lot of negative repercussions for them, including prosecuting some of them who were involved in corruption or in wheeling, dealing, or whatever. And there are many of them who did things like this. So I think that they will play it rough till the end, the Georgian Dream. This is my opinion. And in my opinion as well, I might be wrong, but I would be very surprised if we get the European candidacy at the end of the year. I will be very surprised. I don't think it will happen.
What will be the consequences of that?
Well, the consequences of that, people will get angrier against the government, okay? And the 2024 will be a very tense year, a very politically tense year. That will be the consequences. And when we will have a proper government that will work on those 12 points seriously and make them happen, then we can apply for candidacy. It's not that the door is closed for us forever. This means if we don't get it in December, we will never get it. No, maybe we'll get it in 25, in 27, I don't know. But I'll be very surprised if we get it at the end of the year.
Why are you surprised? Because, for example, what we see from different sources, what the European Commission is looking at, for example, like intermediary reports, they are saying that Georgia is doing quite well on some of the points.
The EU wants Georgia to be part. I mean, it's strategically important for the EU. It's not that they're doing us a favor, you understand? I mean, it's a win-win that Georgia, because geopolitically, the EU will become stronger if Georgia, that is on the eastern side of the Black Sea, becomes an EU member. So geopolitically, it's in the interest of the EU also. However,
and maybe economically as well now. Maybe economically as well now because of the Middle Corridor and all the projects that we are hearing. Do you think?
Yes, but that's a problem, the Middle Corridor, because technically the Middle Corridor does not exist. The whole idea of the Middle Corridor is to shortcut Russia. As long as Georgia is pro-Russian and following the Russian policies, the Middle Corridor is
ephemeral.
Yes. So, but to come back to your point regarding those interim reports and those messages, those are messages, diplomatic messages that are being sent to kind of give some hope to the government to try to start changing things. It's not that the EU, they're not stupid. Neither the EU ambassador is stupid, nor the EU in Brussels. I mean, they know very well what's going on the ground and who's doing what and what are the policies of the government. But they're sending positive messages, trying that maybe this government will change course somehow. That no, because if they come today and say there is no way you're going to get your candidacy in December, then the government will remain on their position and they will not try to change anything. So those are diplomatic messages, just enticing the government to try to start changing course, which will not happen because this government is hostage of Russia. I mean, they will not do it in any way. So let's be pragmatic.
So where do you see the way out in this situation?
Unless there is either a geopolitical change with the war between Russia and Ukraine, this could have an impact on Georgia, or
if Ukraine, when Ukraine
yeah,
wins.
if Ukraine has the upper hand and they started negotiations for the Russians to withdraw, this will relieve the Georgian government from the Russian pressure, okay? So this is one, because the Georgian government is hostage. I mean, they are hostage of Russia. I don't think that, I don't think that Garibashvili or Kobakhidze or even, what's his name, this Sozar Subari, there are traitors to the country. But they have information that we don't have, okay? They know that if they don't follow the course that they are following, something bad is going to happen. What is the something bad for them or something bad for the country? I don't know. So they are hostage. It's not by choice that they decided to go, but they are hostage of Russia. And that's why, I mean, in 2024, if nothing changes geopolitically between Ukraine and Russia, then we will see what will happen with the elections. Because people are tired, life has become very expensive in Georgia. I mean, the cost of life is similar to the cost of life in certain EU countries. But in the EU countries, it's the EU. This means you have perks, you have other things, you have a proper pension, not $100 pension. You have social, hospitalization and insurances and all these things. So it justifies a higher cost of life. But here we have a high cost of life with nothing.
I remember how Mike Honigstein said that, this is the reason why Georgia needs to become a member of EU, because why would you leave for the EU if you can live in the EU?
Yes, but I'll tell you, I mean, also if you analyze the people who are supporting the EU, I never done a research, but my common sense tells me, if you have 80% of the people who support the EU, out of the 80%, you have maybe 10% or 15% who support because they want a rule of law and they want a democracy. And the remaining 90% or 80% of them want the EU so they can go to the EU and work. Okay, so that they have a bigger, so they can make more money. So also we have to understand why the people want to go to the EU. Not because they believe in the EU as such, but because it's a financial opportunity for them, you see?
Yes, does that help the process?
No, I mean, this does not help the process because those people who go to the streets are those 15% who want their country to be a democracy and there is no corruption.
Thank you, Fady.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.